Joining us is Calvin Dark, who's a political analyst and commentator based in Washington, D.C. He's been keeping across all the latest from the UN summit in New York. Calvin, what do you make of Ms. Truss's first speech to the UN General Assembly?
Well, I think obviously as citizens in the UK, here in the US, after the Queen's funeral, we were all, looking to this as the first, on the international stage with the new prime minister. And so that was one thing we were looking at. I have to tell you, the first thing that I just noticed just visually was the Ukrainian flag that she had on her lapel pin along with the UK flag. And I think that really underscored the second thing that I know people in the U.S. were looking for is what would be the message on Ukraine, what would be UK leadership, and how that would, match with what President Biden said earlier today on Ukraine and the Russian war.
Indeed. And the message that is sent out, though, when a leader, a nation's leader, has two different flags on their lapel, you couldn't imagine the President of the United States having a Ukrainian flag and a Stars and Stripe on his lapel, could you? Isn't it the message some form of divided state of the nation,
Mm-hmm. Well, I will have to say this as kind of my lane is, communication and branding in other parts in the U.S. So the brander in me thought exactly what you said, that, that wouldn't happen here in the U.S. just because I think too much would be read into it. I leave that to the citizens of the UK to figure out that kind of juxtaposition, what that meant. But I do think that it reflects that this is the priority, at least as far as the UN is concerned, for the United States, for European powers, in particular the UK, that has taken, leadership on the Ukraine issue. So I understand why, but it remains to be seen how that will be, received.
Yeah. She didn't say anything about the cost of living crisis here in the UK. Maybe the UN General Assembly isn't the right forum for it. I don't know. But I know from the calls we've taken already tonight on our phone-in with regards to, the State of the Nation address have been very much about the cost of living crisis. And yet she virtually ignored that. What do you make of that?
Well, I think there are two sides to it. One is I think that for this format, for this forum with the UN, that the message on Ukraine and, her basically introducing herself was what people were looking for. But then, the other side is you have to, you're speaking to domestic audiences, just as President Biden spoke to us today, not just to the international community, but to us. So is the same with Prime Minister Truss. And I think that it's a delicate balance, because one of the things that I know that the UK is dealing with, that we are, is as we want to, I think most people here support to Ukraine, we're also having our own economic woes, and we have an election coming up, and a lot of people are debating what are our spending priorities. So clearly that's the case in the UK as well. So I think what I'm going to be looking for is exactly how you said, how the lack of really talking about that on the international stage, how do you reconcile that with the very strong support? I don't have the transcript in front of me, but I think she said something about we're in this for the long haul. We're in this till the end. And so that'll be interesting to see how that's reconciled.
Calvin, thank you very much. Calvin Dark there.